Idaho Fish and Game presents Vintage Wildlife News, stories from the Great Gem State.
Take this wildlife heritage as prime trophy animals become the objects of the hunt. This is the harvest season, when days are fixed the hillsides with bright colors, and wildlife is on the move. Horses and mules transport equipment, supplies, and people to remote regions as the backcountry plays host to the hunters. This is where game animals have spent the long summer in the land of plenty. A summer range map shows that most of the state is available to big game animals. They find everything they need in this big country with ample food, water, and cover. Proper game management aims for a balance between numbers and available food supplies to produce strong, healthy animals and high numbers of young. Game managers find little cause for concern for game on the summer ranges. But problems arise when winter comes and the range shrinks to small, isolated living spaces. Winter ranges vary in size depending on snow depths, temperatures, and land use. The amount and types of available food then becomes a limiting factor. Sometimes loss of vegetation is so severe that nothing is left to protect the soil. Fire may destroy important plants and sometimes injure soil needed to grow new plants. When ground cover is lost, there is nothing to prevent soil from washing away during the springtime runoff period. Insects may damage plants needed by game animals for a part of their normal diet. The problem is basic. Everyone knows there must be the right kinds of food and in ample amount to keep game animals alive and healthy during the cold winter months. The winter range thus becomes more important than the animals living on the area. For example, the animals equal one annual crop. The winter range represents many years of future crops. Deer losses may be restored in a few years, but loss of winter range may cause loss of game animal production for 20 or 30 years. In early days before the country was settled, game animals spent the winters in valleys and along lower slopes. Today, they are forced to live at higher elevations. Snow may cover many plants, and game must spend extra energy in search of food. When animals establish the habit of using certain places, they return year after year, even when their food supply is practically gone. Some animals use winter ranges where browse is more abundant. These places are limited, however. Even though animals have enough to eat, their numbers must be controlled or the range will be depleted. Big game animals spend nearly half their life on winter range. Here, competition is keen, and Mother Nature's rule, survival of the fittest, is most apparent. To the casual observer, a game range may appear to have sufficient plants for any need, but evaluating a game range is not this simple. Some plants are better than others. They apparently taste better and have higher nutritional value. These are basic bread and butter plants to the game animals and are often eaten down to large bare stems. In order to learn more about why game animals use certain areas, they are sometimes trapped and marked. Information obtained from these studies is helpful in setting seasons, bag limits, and hunting area boundaries. Trapping is carried on in many sections of the state. Several methods are used to identify animals after they are trapped. Numbered tags are placed in the animal's ears. Colored neckbands and even small bells are sometimes attached. Information is obtained regarding home ranges, migration routes, and how long animals live. Population estimates may be made by analyzing figures from tag returns on specific study areas. Most deer and elk return to the same wintering areas each year. Records show that some deer migrate nearly 100 miles between summer and wintering areas. Fish and Game Department field men carry on experimental studies to learn what happens on game ranges. These study areas, or check plots, are set aside in order to conduct research on plant growth and survival. Measurements are made to find the growth rate of different species. Records are kept of weather, survival, and condition of each plant within the check plot. Willow is important food for all members of the deer family. Willows grow rapidly when they have a good water supply. They help stabilize stream banks. Bitterbrush is one of the most important deer foods. It is high in nutrients, but is often crowded out by less desirable plants. Bitterbrush seed was planted on one of the experimental projects. Hand-operated corn planters were used to place the seeds on steep hillsides where large equipment could not operate. Small single-wheel planters were used on several areas where slopes were not so steep. Many methods have been tried to improve winter ranges. Unfortunately, most of this work has met with little success. Studies and experimental plantings are still being made, however, to find economic ways of improving big game winter ranges. Each new idea is tested, but the task of growing sufficient food under other than natural conditions seems almost impossible. An example of the problem is illustrated by this bitterbrush plant, which has grown only 1 inch in a year's time. Accurate measurements of every plant in a study area is needed to furnish a record of what is taking place on a range. The pressure is terrific when winter comes. Once more, the browse plants tell a story. Twigs plainly show how much growth has taken place during the summer. As deer eat the branches, the amount used is easily seen and may be measured. When game animals use more than half the annual twig growth, trouble lies ahead for the range and the wildlife. Department field men check range use during the winter. They investigate when animals die and report physical condition of each one found. Samples of food are sometimes taken from the animal's paunch to determine what is being eaten. The soft material inside bones shows body condition. Bone marrow normally contains fat and is cream in color. When food is scarce, the animal draws on this fat, a last reserve of needed energy. Marrow which is drained of fat is jelly-like and reddish in color and reveals poor physical condition in the animal. Plants may be numerous on some winter ranges, but still not supply the right nutrients to keep animals in good condition. They become subject to disease and attacks by parasites. Pneumonia is often the cause of death, the result of long periods of sub-zero temperatures. Big game winter ranges vary in size in different parts of the state. Animals are checked on many of these areas each winter. Aircraft are sometimes used for these surveys on remote sections where trend counts are made. Some big game animals spend part of each winter on lowland prairie-type ranges. But these areas are rather limited in size and are often near private land where domestic crops may be damaged. Adequate harvest of game animals during the hunting season is the basic answer to the winter range problem. Hunters may enjoy nature's bounty and the great outdoors. At the same time, they harvest the crop of surplus animals that might otherwise be lost throughout the winter. The highest production in pounds of meat, hides, and trophies has always come about as a result of keeping game animals in balance with their food supply. Proper management calls for hunting to remove surplus game. Only through such action can winter ranges survive and continue to produce strong, healthy animals year after year.
This edition of Vintage Wildlife News has been presented by the Idaho Department of Fish and Game.